Excuse me, 800,000 plus
This is
lives.
a kind of big
How about
lie.
that?
No, this is a big lie.
Actually, it's not a big lie.
So you're telling me a completely destabilized Iraq now is better than where it was in 2002?
I'm not responsible for Iraq.
The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
That the FBI agents raided Bolton's home in Bethesda, Maryland this morning as part of a, quote, national security investigation in search of classified records.
John Bolton has been responsible for the deaths directly or indirectly of hundreds of thousands of people, destabilization of numerous countries, and the wasting of trillions of dollars of U.S. resources. Just to get an idea of who John Bolton is, I clipped together these few clips here. Go ahead and take a look. Show you who John Bolton is and the lead up to how we got to this point. You see a little bit of Trump at the end discussing his relationship with John Bolton. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Is Trump right to go after John Bolton? Is he overstepping his power? What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments.
I think President Bush did exactly the right thing in overthrowing Saddam Hussein, and it's kind of stunning to me to see you libertarians defending that dictatorship.
Is that what happened?
No one's defending the dictatorship.
All right. Now, gloves are coming off, Ambassador.
No one's defending the dictatorship at all.
Sure you are.
No, absolutely
not. As George Orwell once said of the accusers
that line.
In World War II, he said they were objectively pro-fascist.
Yeah, you should read Orwell beyond the diaries that he wrote in World War II and read how
heaven forbid. His diaries don't reflect what he really believed.
He rejected that line. If you're going to use that Orwell, know your Orwell. He repudiated that line precisely because he knew that it didn't allow for proper understanding of the people that he was talking to.
You give me the citation where he repudiated the quote I just made.
If you're talking about getting distracted by questions, let's not get distracted here while we're having this discussion, because there are some very critical questions that have to be answered.
Right.
I will let you start. Why don't you raise the most critical one?
Explain to me why you believe Saddam Hussein should still be in power in Iraq today.
I don't. He's dead. So let's move on.
Well, no. I think part of.
Let's move on. Okay.
How about this, Mr. Bolton?
Why is he dead?
How about this, Mr. Bolton? Here's an issue that I think we need to reconcile ourselves to.
You can't answer the question. That's
Actually,
why you want to address
Mr. Bolton, we asked you to come here. We're going to have a conversation. Matt is sort of giving you an answer. If you'll allow me, I'd like to transition to something slightly different based on what you just said.
Go ahead.
Excellent. You talked about us not looking backwards, not paying attention to what happened before because we're faced with a number of choices now. It seems to me that the kind of decision that we might make may in fact be influenced by the fact that we've made certain decisions in the past and it hasn't worked out particularly well. There were in fact people in the administration who told us this would be a cakewalk, that we would be greeted as liberators, who don't seem to understand the region nearly as well as they pretended that they did before the conflict began. And after the conflict has gone on for more than a decade, hundreds of thousands of lives expended at this point, sir.
That is ridiculous. That is utterly ridiculous.
Okay, fine.
What's your source on the hundreds of thousands of lives?
800,000 plus lives.
This is a kind of big lie. No, this is a big lie.
Actually, it's not a big lie. Let's say it's a mistake.
You don't have a source for it. Then tell me your source.
Sir, again, the source.
Tell me your source.
Okay, no, I'm going to stop you both right now. Hold on 1 second. Why don't you give me your source? Why don't you give me your number? If you're so accurate with your math, hold on a second. If you're so accurate with your math, why don't you give me a number? And why don't you justify that? So you're telling me a completely destabilized Iraq now is better than where it was in 2002?
I'm not responsible for Iraq today. That's because of what Barack Obama did in withdrawing American troops.
The withdrawal took place
fundamentally the case. I think that's unquestionably
on the
truth.
basis of the timetable that the Bush administration set up before they left. The Iraqi regime that we protected, we the United States government, I'm being very inclusive there because I've been against this, that we protected, we're supposed to have time to stand up troops, we're supposed to have time to reconcile themselves to these various factions. They did not do that. They failed at it miserably, and they asked us to leave. It seems ridiculous to me to try and place all of the blame on this, especially from someone who just said we shouldn't be pointing fingers.
If you people would ever ask a sensible question instead of simply relying on ideological nostrums, I would explain to you that I think that nation building in Iraq was never going to work and was not the objective. All that said, it was the right thing to overthrow Saddam Hussein, and knowing what we know today, I would do it again.
Okay, oh, really? Okay, but by the way, Donald Rumsfeld has gone on the record and said you wouldn't assassinate Saddam Hussein. Instead, you would spend thousands and thousands of lives and billions of dollars. That seems like an absurd justification.
Look, the overthrow of Saddam Hussein was accomplished in an extraordinarily short period of time and with very few American casualties. There are two issues here. Was it right to overthrow Saddam Hussein? And then second, what happened after that? And you're conflating the two, and that's a huge mistake.
I just don't see how you separate the overthrow from what happens afterwards, because of course there's a post-war.
Well, that's perfectly obvious how you separate it, because there were alternative courses that you could have taken. For example, instead of setting up a coalition provisional authority, we could have simply
say that they could not find that Iraq possessed chemical or biological weapons or that it had reconstituted a nuclear weapons program. They asked for more time. Other folks said similar things, that there was no evidence of it. And you're saying that the logical inference that the reasonable person, the reasonable man or person would infer from that, not that there were no weapons or that the evidence was untrue or that the claim was untrue, but that Saddam Hussein is simply hiding it from an international community and professional inspectors on the ground. That's the logical inference?
Let me just remind you of the important intelligence adage. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. There was no disproof of the notion that Saddam still had extensive chemical weapons stockpiles.
But those are all arguments for continued monitoring. Those aren't arguments for war. Those aren't arguments for military intervention, absence of evidence when people are asking for more time.
I think it's a perfectly good argument that we didn't want to wait until one of our cities was a smoking ruin. Yeah, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait.
But that was suggested there's some ticking time bomb that couldn't be averted otherwise.
Population. He was a threat to peace and security in the region. He had repeatedly violated Resolution 687. If you believe in the sanctity of Security Council resolutions, when a country repeatedly violates it, I would think that would concern you. So I have no trouble at all with the conclusion that Saddam was a threat and he should have been removed. In 2020 hindsight, we should have removed him in 1991.
John Bolton, I appreciate your time.
Begin today's show looking at President Trump's ousting of John Bolton, his hawkish national security advisor. Bloomberg is reporting Bolton's firing came after he opposed a proposal to ease sanctions on Iran and for Trump to possibly meet with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani later this month on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. Bolton has long been a fierce critic of diplomacy. He'd strongly pushed for Trump to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. He also opposed negotiations with North Korea, as well as with the Taliban in Afghanistan. And he was a key supporter of the attempted U.S.-backed coup in Venezuela and an advocate of regime change in Cuba and Nicaragua.
On Wednesday, President Trump made his first televised remarks about Bolton's ouster. He repeatedly criticized Bolton's support for the 2003 invasion of Iraq.
And, John wasn't in line with what we were doing. And actually, in some cases, he thought it was too tough what we were doing. Mr. Tough Guy, you have to go into Iraq. Going into Iraq was something that he felt very strongly about. So we're right now in for over $7 trillion into the Middle East. And I don't say it was his decision. You had a president and you had other people also, but he was very out there, I can tell you. We were set back very badly when John Bolton talked about the Libyan model, and he made a mistake. And as soon as he mentioned that, the Libyan model, what a disaster. Take a look at what happened to Gaddafi with the Libyan model. And he's using that to make a deal with North Korea. And I don't blame Kim Jong-un for what he said after that. And he wanted nothing to do with John Bolton. And that's not a question of being tough. That's a question of being not smart to say something like that.
John Bolton becomes the third national security advisor to be ousted by President Trump. So